afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. There are two ladies here. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Olumide Ajibawo. I'm the CEO of Tenor Alpha. It's a leading consulting firm in Nigeria. So we are PCB Platinum member. And we've done a lot of services for PCB in Nigeria. And the beauty of today is that some years back, I was working with UBA. UBA is United Bank of Africa. It's present in everywhere in Africa. We have a branch in New York. We have a branch in UK. So I've led the implementation of standards internally before leaving the bank 2 years ago to start consulting. So it's on that merit that I'll be able to add value to you this afternoon. How can you integrate several management system standards with benefits? What will be the implementation approaches that you can leverage on to add value to an organization? So this will be the flow this afternoon. We look at introduction to ISO 37001 Anti-Bribery Management System, having a multiple standards in place. How can you integrate them? What are potential problems you have with just one management system in an organization? I can tell you what it is. In a bank where we have 10,000 employees, in Nigeria alone, we have 500 branches. In African countries, we're present in 15 countries. Implementing a single standard in itself is a problem. Talk less of having 5 standards in a workplace. And you are adding ISO 37001 into it, anti-bribery management system. So what will be the integration framework? The guiding principles, assuming you are the internal consultant or an external consultant, what principles will guide you so that you can land a good IMS system within the shortest possible time? Then we look at some other requirements. So the intention is that we look at opportunities. Out of this session, we look at assumptions and considerations you should think of when you want to install an IMS. That think of ISO 37001 and some other management systems. All right. This is just a short introduction into standards. They are used strategically to bring about value in an organization. Companies use standards to create value, to sustain value. Mind you, the whole essence of every business existence is to generate revenue, to grow revenue, to reduce its risk in its operating environment. We also know that it's a good tool to manage an enterprise where you have your company in Nigeria, your company in New York. How can you present value across, present services that are unique, representative of your organizational value? Standard will help you to do that. And therefore, it has been proved to be golden tools to manage risk across different boundaries, different enterprises. And so, as a good golden tool, you need to craft out principles, have well-structured processes, have a team that manage the standards so that you can be competitive. So the use of standard globally has increased in the last 10 years. And I want to bring us to one picture. In 2016 May, there was an anti-bribery or anti-corruption conference held in the UK, trying to look at corruption globally, because it was pain point in the world, and it's still a pain point till date. And there were issues of compliance, issues of value that does not depict what that country represents. There are issues of corruption, cross-boundary corruptions. Countries were not even sure whether such things do not promote terrorism. So there were issues of concern around bribery. So about 150 countries came together in May 2016, preceding the release of anti-bribery management system standard, and they were looking at bribe, and they came to a conclusion that corruption should be exposed. There should be no hidden place for corruption anywhere in the world. And number two, corruption should be pursued and be punished when corrupt officers are identified. And it is not alien to any country. This have to know in East Africa, in East Europe, there was a picture of what is happening in Belarus, in Russia. So corruption is global. And how to deal with it, there must be a global approach to deal with corruption. As at that May 2016, there was no standard from the table of ISO produced to manage corruption globally. And so, just before then, there were a catalog of companies globally that were involved in taking bribes. The list we have here was extracted from Ernst & Young data as at that May 2016. You see on the left-hand side, companies that were involved, reasons why they gave bribe, and there were implications. They were discovered and they were penalized. We understand some years back, Heron, there used to be Arthur Anderson. We don't have such names anymore because of issues of corruptions that they were fingered in. So to top executives, there are issues to be considered. If I have a company and my company is number one in the world, what are those threats? What are those risks I stand to suffer if I'm fined $2 billion in a year because my staff probably were fingered in corruption? What consequence do I stand to benefit or to suffer as an entity? So the Secretary General of OE&C and D, that's Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, in 2016, at their forum looking at Africa, because there's a figure from ADP, African Development Bank, that says the continent of Africa loses as much as $246 billion to corruption. And we also heard in a class attended before now that in Eastern Europe, there's as much as $1.5 trillion that are lost to corruption or bribe taking globally. Now, what are the consequences? There are social consequences. And from Akinwumi Adesina, who is currently the president of African Development Bank, he says there's a problem of transparency, there's a problem of accountability in the African continent and in some other continents, which has a global outlook. And then it has implication on governance and how to bring social value to those different entities. And the problem is deeply issues of taking bribe, issues of corruption, which are linked. And also, from Organization for Economic and Cooperation Development, they saw corruption as an issue which must be addressed together. So solving corruption globally must be done together. So based upon that, it was decent for ISO as a body to now present to the whole world a standard known as Anti-Bribery Management System, ISO 37001, which was released in 2016. So from African perspective, you lose as much as $148 billion annually to corruption or bribe. It has been perceived as a way of life, not only in African continents. A session I attended just before now, a man said there was no way he would travel from his country from his own Belarus to Russia without paying bribes to policemen. It's a common feature in many entities. You want to do transboundary transactions, you have to tip some people, which is unofficial. That is bribe. As an entity, as an organization, how can you address this bribe risk that you may face? And therefore, you have the opportunity of addressing bribery risk using ISO 37001 standard. In Nigeria, for example, depending on the environment you operate, I mean, if you operate in a regulatorily controlled environment, there are some practices that are not encouraged, which the regulator has put in place control. the Central Bank of Nigeria does not encourage bribes collection, does not encourage corruption with respect to the banks you are operating with. So they compelled banks to implement some basic standards. At the moment, ISO 37001 is not there, but there are some standards that ISO standards that the banks have been compelled to implement. In that case, using standards in some banks in Nigeria is no longer voluntary decisions. They are compelled by the regulator because they want to have a value created in the entity. So you have 24 banks in Nigeria, major banks, and all of them since 2010 have been implementing some ISO standards. They have implemented 27001, they have implemented 22301, they have implemented 20,000, they have implemented Qubit 5 from the ISO platform. You have it as ISO 38500, and they are also implementing ISO 45001. This may be nice to have. So I'll be looking at it in this session today from a perspective that I'm a bank in Nigeria that has 4 management systems already. As a good practice, can I add up to those 4 management systems ISO 37001? So that is just what we want to propagate, and that's what we are propagating. Okay, looking at that from that perspective, we know that bribery in business transactions can have devastating social effects. You have people downtrodden, they are vulnerable. We understand that the reason why you have ISO standards is to protect vulnerable people. And we also understand that the cost of doing business has increased because people pay bribe, companies pay bribe, staff collect bribes. And from the slide I showed to us before now, it has become way of life. People want to have easy access to transactions. They don't have that. I met a man about 3 months ago in Charlotte, in US. He said, I'm having problem transacting business with your port authority. Can you help me? There might be problem of having easy access because somebody is asking for gratification or a bribe. Now, as an institution, where do you stand? Because you need to portray value. You need to bring value to the table. In that case, you need to implement ISO 37001 to curb what? Bribe taking, to prevent situations where your people will take gift as gratification, where you won't provide equal opportunities to different suppliers and to different people across the enterprise. All right. The first standard was released, as I said, in 2016. Before 2016, there was no standard at a global scale. The best you had was BS 10,500. Now, so let's go on to the level of integrating management system. As an internal person trying to install 3 management systems, what I have seen that are happening in many companies in Nigeria, which is not also limited to Nigeria. When the ISO 9001-2015 was released in 2015, I was in Chicago, and then we were 11 people in that class. 9 Americans, 1 Nigerian, 1 Canadian. And then when we realized that management representative role, clause 5.5.2 of ISO 9000-2008 had been eliminated, everybody in that class was wondering, how am I going to manage my ISO 9001 management system? Because the practice all over the world is that top management actually are not deeply involved in putting in place a management system. If you are an auditor here today, when you're auditing next time, find out who wrote that policy. Was it directly written by top management? If you do a survey, SAR said no. How can you lead a management system that even putting in place a policy became a problem to you? You would not be able to lead it. So if you are a coordinator of a management system, you have a challenge. So if you are managing 2, your challenges are double. If there are 4, you have multiple problems. And everybody expects you to perform. I have seen many people, implementers in many companies, Nigeria, Ghana. It is when external auditors are coming that they will package management review reports, because those managements don't sit for meetings. So therefore, with that at the back of your mind, how are you going to manage multiple standards? If we sell ISO 37001 to an organization, the top reason why they might adopt 37001 is probably to be number one in terms of compliance, and that our image does not encourage a value that is not like preventing corruption, or that is giving room for bribes taking. So we have in Nigeria today Dangote, that's owned by the African richest man. We have top banks as examples of companies implementing management systems. As a best practice for these Dangote companies across Africa, it's a practice that every installation, whether you are into food, you are into energy, you are into service, you must implement multiple standards. That is the man's strategic management tools, implement standards. I have said here that top banks in Nigeria, by CBN rule, Central Bank of Nigeria rule, mandate, they must implement standards. Reason being that over the years, they have seen that banks spend so much money on IT facilities, software, entering to millions of dollars, but the competence to manage such businesses were not there. The CBN wanted organizations that will compete globally among the top banks. Therefore, they mandated the banks to implement ISO standards and to get it certified using accredited certification body. In Nigeria today, PCB has business in Nigeria. And so banks have different timeline, different project management plans, and timeline to get certified to different standards. They have done that. They also have solid compliance framework. But that compliance framework is not riding on the like of 37001. When I was in the bank, close to Christmas, they would tell you this is our operational risk policy. Never collect gift. If you collect a gift, more than $1,000 or less than $100, declare. But I've seen people, they don't declare. I see top executives who collect gifts, they don't declare. Now, if you have ISO 37001, because you have it as a policy, you have some framework within ISO 37001 that you have implemented, it becomes out of place for you to allow things to pass you by. All right? In IT investments, we realize that if you give room for bribe taking, bribe collection, it may impact on your IT cost. Because when somebody comes to the table, it tells you, I like vendor A, but that is not the vendor that is giving you the best value because somebody has taken bribe. All right. So integrating management system in itself will reduce cost. There is this hypothetical examination that was done that says that you reduce cost by 35% when you implement integrated management system. In the bank, I understand how to train lead implementer on 9001, lead implementer on 27001, lead implementer on business continuity. But if the system is integrated, you reduce your audit time, you reduce your management review time, you reduce the time you spend on designing, you reduce the time of engagement of different people. So it is a smart thing. If you have a growing organization that wants to operate lean, then you must think of integrated management system. In the banking industry in Nigeria, the way banks are seen is, if I pick Guaranty Trust Bank in Nigeria, which is number one, and the Q3 performance was looking good. Now, if I compare top 4 banks in Nigeria, I will be looking at cost to income ratio. Cost to income ratio. The difference between bank 1 that is doing well and bank 2 that appears not to be doing well may just be part of your investment into ISO standards. Because it is regulatory, you have no choice. So why not go the way of integrated to reduce the cost of managing your management systems? So you have reduced costs for managing that, and you have cohesion. You will see how cohesion is portrayed when we apply one of the strategies to have integrated management system. You have efficiency, you have effectiveness, and you have opportunity to have better cost to income ratio. So anti-bribery management system, in a way, if you have it, will help you to build a culture of integrity openness, transparency, and compliance. I deal with British American Tobacco in Nigeria. Every staff, including security, knows that he must not take a pen from you. Do they have anti-bribery management system? No, but that is a global practice. So as an enterprise, you want to build a culture of integrity, openness, transparencies to your employees by putting in place a management system that defines you, that tells everyone this is our intention and direction towards bribe. So putting in place an anti-bribery management system is smart. And then you also have an opportunity to avoid or mitigate costs. Litigation, where one of your staff, they have been fingered in bribe taking. Have been a bank where some staff are so funny. They connive with customers and they rob the bank. So what do you want to, so you need to put in place a management system that is proactive to address anti-bribery risk. All right. So in addition to that, you want to promote confidence and trust in your dealings. Most companies are quoted on the stock exchange market. So that would be a best way to portray to all communities, all stakeholders, that you are operating in a best acceptable manner. You do not give room for transactions that are clouded with bribes taking and issues like that. So these are top reasons why companies globally should think of anti-bribery management system based on ISO 37001. You want to promote a culture of anti-bribe. You want to prevent conflict of interest. Conflict of interest can increase your project costs. 3, you want to reduce overall business costs. Every business that is the top class, your concern is not about it's not about the cost of running the business. It's about efficiency and effectiveness, which translates to your profitability. And you want to promote trust, confidence. You want to prevent. ISO 37001 is proactive. It's a proactive way of identifying your bribery risk, having a process of managing the bribery risk, and then in a situation where you are put in place a kind of reactive tendencies to manage the bribery risk, to be able to mitigate the consequences on your business. And then you also have international recognition. So what I'm trying to do in this case is just to give us a picture of other elements of the anti-bribery management system, which is not there in some other management systems, and that makes this standard, ISO 37001, unique. You must carry out bribery risk assessment. And if you notice that in all standards, assuming you are implementing ISO 27001, you have implemented 22301, you have implemented 9001, you will realize that as a good business, it speaks to your risk appetite. What is your risk appetite? Do you have an enterprise risk management system in place, maybe ISO 31000? So what we are saying in this case is this: identify, determine your bribery risk in addition. That is simply what we are saying with 37001. Identify your bribery risk within your operating environment. If you are into cross-boundary transactions or businesses, you identify bribery risk in different entities. If I understand some culture of African countries, there may be a community or a country more exposed to bribe issues. What it is in US might not be what it is in Russia, might not be what it is in Ethiopia and co. But you may need to identify your bribery risk from different countries or different enterprise. Then you need to look to put in place a kind of a compliance function. Compliance function is who will be the manager of that anti-bribery management system. In ISO 9001, we call it Quality Management System Coordinator, upon which function does it rest. So that's what this standard is talking about. Let there be accountability. And so that function that is accountable for managing anti-bribery risk compliance is known as anti-bribery compliance function. Then you have due diligence, you have financial control, non-financial control. You have a policy on gifts, hospitalities, donations, similar benefits, conflict of interest, business associates, and objectives. Business associates here, what should happen in some organizations in Nigeria, you don't take a proposal or a quote from 3 entities. They have defined how many entities you should take proposals or quote from. Now, but one thing that is sweet, that gives room for integration, is because this ISO 37001 is married after Annex XL. Annex XL. Annex XL is a management system framework that allows you to integrate multiple management systems. That Annex XL also makes it easy for you to have handshake with different management systems. I will just show to us what is similar in all those management systems. Okay. Now, what are the potential integration opportunities? Depending on your management system, currently, you have ISO 9001, you have ISO 14001, you have ISO 45001, operational health, you have ISO 20000, you have ISO 22000, you have ISO 22301, you have ISO 27001, you have ISO 37001. We are currently supporting a company in Nigeria. It's Internal Revenue Service. They collect taxes. They already have ISO 9001, and then they also have 22301. Now, how many of such collections truly reflect as revenue for the agency? I don't know now. But assuming I'm engaged as anti-bribery compliance function, the first thing for me to do is to identify what is the bribery risk this organization is exposed to, all right, before thinking of integration and putting in place an anti-bribery management system. So to put in place an anti-bribery management system and integrate it may just be a sweet thing to do. Because for some of us implementing in Nigeria and other parts of the world, you have 5 management systems. What value do you want to bring to the table in 2019? The best value to bring to the table is to appeal to your top management. Let's find a way of integrating, lean the standards or the processes, the framework, and we'll be able to save this cost and add value to the business. So that is important when we integrate a management system. So the smartest way to do is to write it on Annex XL. Then number 2, you need to establish the integration within your own context. What do I mean? Organization A may be different from organization B in the sense that we have some culture where maybe some people will not attend meeting, where there is no ownership, where people are complaining of multiple processes or different boundaries. So as a lead implementer of an integrated management system, we need to establish within our own context the external issues, the internal issues, the culture within the organization, apply SWOT analysis, apply PES2. That's one. You need to do that. What is your risk appetite? Now, if I'm in a banking sector, I can tell you what the risk appetite is. There are some transactions, some top 4 banks in Nigeria will never consummate because they know once the regulator sees that, you'll be fined deeply. My bank was fined as much as $50 million 3 years ago. Why? Because they could not render on time to a single treasury account all the money they collected, they were fined. So how much of fines do you want to incur in a year? It has an impact on your profitability. So there are some banks, based upon their risk appetite, they will not enter into some transactions. They will not operate in some countries. There are some transactions that will be flagged up by the software because they don't give room for that. Then, as a lead implementer, you need to carry out gap assessment. Assuming you are implementing 4 management systems, you need to review the 4 management systems. Where do we have problems? Where do we have noise? What is the extent of implementation of each of the management system? So that when you are coming up with a project plan to integrate all the management systems with anti-bribery management system, you understand what the issues are within your organization to address. And based upon that, you proceed to develop an integrated management system. And of course, you drive the execution and the review. Now, this is what Annex XL is all about. You already have, assuming I'm looking at ISO 27001, we already have information security policy. We already have business continuity policy. We are putting on top of that anti-bribery policy. All we need to do is to reflect all those in our documentation. So we need to link the documentation. That's the first thing to look at. We need to look at our objectives. How can we refine the objectives to address the total enterprise objectives and align to the risk appetite of the organization? Of course, implementing ISO 27001, you would have done your information security risk determination. If you have implemented 22301, you would have identified and determined business continuity risk. Now, if you have done 9001, you would have determined your customer's risk. What the beauty of this is to have an enterprise look at risk. So there's bribery risk, there's customer risk, there's market risk, there's business continuity risk, there's information security risk. So you provide everything, and then you can, in your documentation, reflect the policies across and find a program where people can adopt this policy. So NSX has high-level structure. It therefore means that the requirements from clauses 4 to 10 are alike in all standards that have passed through NSX since 2015. So it is possible to integrate. That's what that means simply. So for you to be able to integrate, you must think of inclusiveness. You cannot operate in silos. He's implementing ISO 27001. That's what I have in one bank at the moment. He's implementing QMS. They don't have handshake. So the main effort is to have inclusiveness. Different people implementing different management systems in an organization must come together. That is inclusiveness. If you don't have inclusiveness of all the process owners, to think integrated is a waste of time. They will still operate in silos. Management reviews will be done at different times. Internal audit will be done by different parties, and the coverage, the cost that you want to reduce might not just be reduced. There's also issue of customization. I met one guy 3 days ago. He said, wow, we're having BSI managing this management system, PCB is managing this management system. How can we integrate? I said it's possible. There must be a decision taken by your top management on which certification body that you want to ride on for integration. So that has to be resolved, customize it. You talk about human and cultural factors. You talk about people driving the IMS must understand the management systems. So there must be deep understanding of different requirements within the standard so that you can integrate them. There are cases where you have documentation. Your documentation outlook must be the same. I've been in a bank where we have group document management policy. For us, it is easier to have the same documentation approach or formula when it comes to clause 7.5 because we already have a policy on documentation. So you also have to look at your support processes where you need to have handshake and integrate. Of course, the objectives, you can integrate that. So these are the proposed strategies you need to look at. So you do that within a project management framework. You plan to deliver an integrated management system. You implement that, and then at the point of review, where you monitor and then you review. For some organizations that have been at maturity level, model level 4, it is possible to have automated management system to measure the processes for adequacy and effectiveness. So if that is done, then you must think risk also. You must engage cross-functional and multidisciplinary team formation to have an integrated management system. If you don't have that, you may just probably be undercasting some issues or overlooking some issues within integrated management system. There must be executives' engagement. So I'm looking at all of us implementing an IMS. So there must be executives' engagement. It will be a continuous one because communication is extensive. Why you are trying to put in place an IMS. Training is also important. It must be extensive. And you need to gauge the extent of assimilation or understanding of what you are doing as an enterprise. Then you align all the documented management system. Your audit too has to be integrated. Your audit process has to be integrated also. We have a situation where auditors need to have deep understanding about the management system. So what you need to do in this case, in the Niger Delta, in the oil and gas in Nigeria, Excravos installation, we installed IMS based on 9001 occupational health and EMS. What did we do as a trainer is to create an hybrid program where the auditors understand 3 management systems so that they can audit. If your auditors don't understand 3 management systems, or you don't understand the strength of your auditors, the audit time you want to save may also be wasted. So then your management review, you need to find a way around your management reviews where top management can possibly review all the management systems. But the issue you have is this, the auditors. Sometimes they will like every item within that your management review requirements to be addressed in each of the management systems. So you may need to have a way of reviewing different layers, parallel lines, overlaps while doing this. All right. The major documents we put in place will be policies, the objectives, the processes. Remember, every management system will have specific processes you have to put in place. Specific processes you have to put in place. Policy will be close by, objectives will be close by, procedures will be there, and then responsibilities and accountability will also need to be there. On the long run, as a lead implementer of IMS, what will be my interest? I'll be looking at value. How do I see value? Adoption. How do I see value? Reduction in risk the organization is exposed to. The profitability increase over a period of time. And so want to see improvement. I want to see every party in the organization contributing to what? Improvement. We want to see individuals within the organization owning the risk and be part of addressing the risk over a period of time. We need to monitor, we need to review. So that's to cap it all. Implementing an integrated management system, there must be top management engagement and ownership. If there's ownership, it is feasible to integrate management system. What you need to do after that engagement and adoption by top management for an integrated management system, because you've done BSI, you've done Bureau de Veritas, you've done PCB. If the top management do not agree to a uniform CB to manage, you may not be able to have integrated management system. That's why I said understand your context and the issue. You may be able to, if you have 5 management systems, you may be able to integrate 2, 3, depending on the thought flow. In GTB, Guarantee Trust Bank in Nigeria, for example, they have one management system, 9001, that was done by a local certification body. They have 2 by PCB, and they have 3 by BSI. So integrating, there must be that top management engagement. There must be understanding of your business. And there must be understanding of different management systems. There must be inclusiveness of all the owners of those management systems so that there can be handshake, there can be oneness, and you can be able to derive the value of an integrated management system. Thank you.